Once again, good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am Zak, the Corruption Detector, and this is yet another edition of Red Pill News. I hope everyone out there is having a lovely afternoon, you're having a lovely evening, and that you are ready to get into some news of the day. First of all, we're going to be talking about the updates on U.S. Attorney John Durham and his investigation. Apparently, he is in negotiations with some people on guilty pleas, and that is good news for justice here in America. Second of all, we're going to be talking about President Trump's new executive order, making sure that only citizens of the United States are counted in the 2020 U.S. Census. That may have an impact on Congress and representation of our communities. And finally, we are going to be getting an update on the junk charges against the McCloskeys in Missouri. That's right, that poor couple who were protecting their property in a gated community when some rioters came through and smashed down their gate and threatened them. So all of these things and perhaps a little bit more, sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, and we'll be right back after a brief word from our sponsor. Burglaries and other violent crimes are surging following unemployment due to the lockdowns. With so much uncertainty in the world, it's never been more important to protect your family and to protect your home. Now, when it comes to ways of preventing break-ins, everyone knows the basics. Cameras, a big barking dog, an alarm system, but what a lot of people don't know is how important effective lighting is. Lights are one of the single best ways you can keep intruders away from your property. Interviews with former burglars reveal that lights are great deterrents to keep them out of your homes. That's why I use night solar lights, ultra bright floodlights in my own yard, and you can get them for as little as $13.64. These ultra-bright floodlights make it easy to light up all the dark spots around your house. They're completely wireless because they use solar panels to charge, and you choose whether they activate with motion detection or stay on with the click of a button. An ex-Navy SEAL was giving home invasion survival tips, and here's what he said. The burglars that want your stuff come in the day. The burglars that want you come in the night. Don't put your family's lives at unnecessary risk. Order these amazing night solar lights for as low as $13.64, which is a total of 52% off, plus you get free shipping when you go to nightsolarlight.com. Make your home safer today. You can go to the link in the pinned comment or the description below. And remember, when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around. First of all, today we're actually going to go over an update of Judge Salas and the situation with her and her family. So several hours after the shooting that took place at her home, another lawyer, a man in upstate New York, was found suicided of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and his information was not immediately released, but they did tell us that apparently a 1,700-page manifesto was identified where he called Judge Salas a lazy Latina Obama-appointed judge. Now, my spidey senses immediately went off as soon as I heard that there was a 1,700-page manifesto. Seems like every time there's a manifesto, it is in order to create a narrative with a preponderance of evidence. Most people are not going to catalog their dislike for people in a 1,700-page manifesto, but it appears to me, I'm still going to say that this guy is probably a patsy, because the easiest thing you could do would be to pin it on somebody else that may have had some type of a grudge against somebody, just get rid of them, and then you walk away into the sunset. Now, the information that came out about this guy later in the day was that his name was Roy Den Hollander, and reportedly Hollander had recently received a cancer diagnosis and was visiting old foes. Now, Hollander was a men's rights attorney, and someone in the comments of my video had mentioned a man by the name of Mark Angelucci. Now, Mark Angelucci was a lawyer and a very prominent men's rights activist. He was featured in a documentary, I believe it came out in 2016, called none other than The Red Pill. Well, on July 11th, he was also gunned down at his home in California. Now, according to the reports, he died at the scene, he was shot in the chest, and initially it was reported in all outlets that he was found unresponsive. Well, all reports before Sunday said the exact same thing. Angelucci, dead on arrival, no response. There were no reported leads. tabloids, and they certainly didn't mention anything about a hitman dressed as a FedEx driver. However, once the situation on Sunday hit, the story evolved, and Angelucci was then reported to be found responsive, and they were also trying to pin it on a suspected FedEx driver dressed as a hitman. Now, this connects to the Salas shooting because this apparent killer right here had some connection to both Angelucci as a men's rights activist and also to Salas. He apparently had had at least one case before her in 2005. So it was also reported that when Hollander was found deceased, in his car, there was additional evidence, including the name and photo of another person, this time a New York chief judge named Janet D. Fiore. That is her right there. Now, Mark Angelucci's friends knew immediately that he had been murdered in a targeted hit. They all said it. It was widely reported leading up to this tragedy on Sunday. Now, he was working on a couple of different high-profile cases at the time of his death, specifically one that would be particularly damaging to Mariposa County because they had wrongfully convicted a man of rape and seized his land, and Angelucci was working to get that man restored and to get that land back. Well, now it appears that with his death, that case is potentially also dead in the water. Now, we had a statement from Rhonda for Congress on Twitter. She said that Angelucci was the co-counsel on 2 cases with her, and she said he was murdered. She did an interview with detectives after he was found, and she's asking for any information to be sent to San Bernardino detectives. Now, what's interesting is that they also show this tweet from Deanna Lorraine in response to that. It was a homicide, most likely a hit. He was just about to win a huge case in Mariposa County that had been going on for years. Can't say much more beyond that at this time, though. Incredible man, though, and did a lot of great things, probably. But I'm going to reach out to Deanna Lorraine directly, and I'm going to see if I can't get a statement from her so that I can continue to update you guys on this and see what she thinks about the FedEx hitman theory. Now, looking through the comments on my thread, I see that Patrick Howley also commented that there was a lawsuit taking on Child Protective Services in California, and guess who its lawyer was? None other than Mark Angelucci. Now, the tweet he posted also includes some horrific testimony from a 10-year-old girl. I'm not going to go over that here, but I am going to leave the link to this in the pinned comment below so you guys can do some more investigating, and I'll be back with more as soon as I find it. Moving on, we have some new information from Joe DeGeneva. U.S. Attorney John Durham is in the process of negotiations with some people on guilty pleas in regards to the Russia collusion scandal. Now, Joe DeGeneva says that John Durham is working on getting these pleas with various deep state actors involved in the Trump coup attempt. Former U.S. Attorney Joe DeGeneva was on the radio earlier today with Mornings with the Mall as part of his weekly interview, and at the beginning of this discussion, DeGeneva discussed the John Durham investigation after the hosts shared an audio of DOJ spokesman Kerry Kupek that was aired last week. Now, here is the piece discussed with Bill Hemmer from Fox that DeGeneva and the listeners heard. First of all, Hemmer says, John Durham, when will there be news on that? And Kupek responds, well, we hope to see a report by the end of the summer. And again, prosecuting attorneys don't write reports, they write up indictments, and then people report on what they've done. He continues, obviously, this is a criminal investigation. The goal is not a report, it's a criminal investigation, but certainly there is a story to be told here. The American people deserve resolution, and frankly, justice deserves resolution. Amen. Hemmer says, okay, but you say... Kupek continues, justice needs to be restored, and that report, I think, is going to be really pivotal to the restoration of that one-tiered justice system. Hemmer asks, by the end of the... And Kupek finalizes, people need to see what was going on. Now, do you think that any Obama officials will go to jail? I know that I certainly believe that there will be, not only because they deserve it, but because, as Kupek says, this is going to be an integral part of restoring the American justice system. Truly, right now, we have multiple tiers where if you have enough money, if you have enough cachet, if you have enough pull or sway with the swamp, you can get away with anything. If you're a normal, average, everyday person, you get crimes pinned on you, or you just end up going to prison. Now, Joe diGenova then dropped some huge news regarding that investigation by John Durham. He said, "I'm all for it. I hope they," meaning Durham, "issue the report as soon as possible and that criminal charges occur thereafter. I'm fascinated by the sequence, but I'm delighted with what's happening." Now, when the interviewer suggested that the report and the indictments might happen at the same time, diGenova had this to say. He said, "Of course, yes, that's exactly what could happen. You got it right, Vince. I suspected all along that Durham was going to do his best to get something done by September. Actually, I suspected it would be June. Indeed, I knew that that was the timetable, but CV-19 put some of the grand jury appearances on hold. And I know that they are in negotiations with some people for some guilty pleas. That is the key point right there. So it may very well be that some guilty pleas occur initially at the same time that the report is issued. They may piggyback those together simultaneously." Now, diGenova went on to elaborate, saying that John Brennan, the former Clowns in America director under former President Barry Obama, was probably never going to be interviewed in front of a grand jury, as he would likely plead the fifth. There is nothing that John Brennan could say that would not implicate himself, whether he actually answered questions or whether he answered them in a false manner. This is big news, you guys. This is pushing us towards that timetable that we've all been waiting for. We were told by our favorite Anon that summers are traditionally hot and that this summer in particular would be very hot indeed. Now, I personally am hoping for something by the end of August. September is pushing it a little bit. That will still be kind of summer in certain areas of the country. But as far as I'm concerned, these initial guilty pleas, these initial indictments need to come down and be revealed before the election, because that's the only way we're going to be able to show a majority of the American public just exactly what happened here. There was a coup that was planned and executed against a duly elected president of our great republic. And as it stands right now, you have about half the country thinking that we have a felon running the country, and that could not be farther from the truth. The true felons were in the last presidential administration. They were the people that were held over and tried to enact this coup. They are the people who used to run our law enforcement and intelligence agencies here in the United States. I said earlier that Christopher Wray has been a glorified HR director during his time at the FBI, and it's going to take another leader coming in after Christopher Wray to be able to pick up those reins and direct us in the right direction. We must have a return to a single-tier justice system here in the United States. If you break the law, if you go against our country, if you sacrifice your own integrity and put the national security of our nation at risk, you open yourself up to prosecution. And most importantly, if you attempt to engage in a coup to remove a democratically elected leader here in our great nation, meaning President Trump, you are going to face justice. All right, next, some really great news that came down earlier today when Methods and I were on Occam's Razor. President Trump has finally signed an executive order banning illegals from the 2020 census count for the purpose of congressional representation. President Trump earlier today signed this executive order banning illegal aliens from the 2020 census count because the more illegals you have on there, the more congressional representation you can have. Now, we have President Trump signing this memorandum earlier today, which specifically seeks to bar people in the U.S. illegally from being counted in congressional reappointment. This is a move that drew immediate criticism from Democratic officials. Of course, why wouldn't it? Because the act of signing this executive order might actually put some congressmen out of business on the Democratic side. Now, last year, the Supreme Court tried to block the Trump administration's move to add a citizenship question to the 2020 census. Why? It is supposed to be counting American citizens. It's not supposed to be counting people who are here illegally. And of course, Chief Justice sided with the liberals. What a shocker. Now, the census is taken every 10 years, and it's used to allot seats to the U.S. House of Representatives, in addition to distributing almost $1 trillion in federal funds. That is big business. This right here is why the DNC chair, Tom Perez, freaked out on Tuesday and slammed President Trump. He said, and I quote, "There is no end to Donald Trump's anti-immigrant agenda," Tom Perez said. said, chairman of the DNC. First, he tried to put a citizenship question on the census, but got blocked by the Supreme Court. Now he's back at it with an unconstitutional order that has no purpose other than to silence and disempower Latino voices and communities of color. Now, Tom Perez, here's the thing. He's the president, and he can do as many executive orders as he wants. That is a long-held precedent. Many presidents prior to him have done the exact same thing. But I take issue with the idea that you think President Trump is anti-immigrant. There is a big difference between illegal aliens and legal immigrants, people who have come here in the proper way through the proper channels and who have become citizens of this great nation. People who are here illegally have no claim to federal representation. Only people who are here as citizens of the United States. So, Tom Perez, I know this is an issue that you like to harp on, but as long as I'm here, I will continue to educate the American public on the difference between the two, because there certainly is. All right, and finally, a really good update. The Missouri Attorney General has filed a brief to dismiss the junk charges against the McCloskeys. Now, the St. Louis prosecutors on Monday filed charges against Mark and Patricia McCloskey. This is the Central West End couple who were seen pointing guns at protesters in late June. Now, Patricia and Mark were each facing one count of unlawful use of a weapon and flourishing, according to News 4. Now, KMOV reported that in a statement Monday, their attorney Joel Schwartz said the charges are disheartening and I unequivocally believe no crime was committed. I, along with my clients, support the First Amendment right of every citizen to have their voice and opinion heard. This right, however, must be balanced with the Second Amendment and Missouri law, which entitle each of us to protect our home and family from potential threats. Now, Schwartz said that he was looking forward to reviewing all the evidence and defending the couple. Now, this is after last month McCloskey and his wife Patricia defended their home from hundreds of militants who broke into their private gated community. Now, Kim Gardner, the circuit attorney for St. Louis, who is also funded by George Soros, filed those charges on Monday. She said it is illegal to wave weapons in a threatening manner at those participating in nonviolent protest, and while we are fortunate the situation did not escalate into deadly force, this type of conduct is unacceptable in St. Louis. Kim said this in a statement when she brought the charges down. She also said, "We must protect the right to peacefully protest, and any attempt to chill it through intimidation will not be tolerated." So what about the right to people's private property? What about the fact that these protesters had to break down a gate into a private gated community? This was not a public street. This was not a public area. This was a private area where these people felt threatened because there were weapons pointed at them, as well as there being vocal threats against them too. Now, Kim Gardner claims the protesters who broke through this gate into the private community were unarmed, peaceful protesters, and it is illegal to wave weapons in a threatening manner at those participating in non-violent protesters, but keeping in mind that the protesters did in fact threaten the McCloskeys. Now, Gardner acted, "We must protect the right to peacefully protest." Here is the statement itself, showing the statement from Kim Gardner and the St. Louis Circuit Court. Later this afternoon, Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmitt stepped in and filed a brief seeking to dismiss those junk charges by Kim Gardner. Now, within hours of the ruling, Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmitt filed this brief seeking to dismiss Gardner's charges on the grounds that their Second Amendment rights are being violated. He said the right to keep and bear arms is given the highest level of protection in our Constitution and our laws, including the Castle Doctrine, which provides broad rights to Missourians who are protecting their property and lives from those who wish to do them harm, Schmitt said. Despite this, Circuit Attorney Gardner filed suit against the McCloskeys, who, according to published reports, were defending their property and safety. As Missouri's chief law enforcement officer, I won't stand by while Missouri law is being ignored. Now, the brief filing says the Attorney General respectfully requests that the court dismiss this case at the earlier possible opportunity. Now, the McCloskeys have said, of course, that they were protecting themselves. With tensions high in St. Louis amid nationwide police protest sparked by the police custody death of that man, George Floyd, the McCloskeys said the crowd of demonstrators broke an iron gate marked with no trespassing, also marked as a private street, and that some were violently threatening them. A.G. Smith released a video later that evening in support of the McCloskeys and in denigration of Kim Gardner and her decision to press charges against the McCloskeys. I think this is a big win for the people of Missouri and for the McCloskeys both. I honestly think this is also a big win for the people of America. It shows that there are limits to what these protesters can do, and it shows that the rights of American people are still being protected. All right, guys, that is truly all I have for you today. I want to thank everyone for joining me once again. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am Zak the Corruption Detector, and this was another edition of Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless. Hey guys, one more thing. I just want to say thank you to everybody who has supported the channel. If you're interested in doing more, there is always links in the description below. I have the merch store. Of course, I also have the backup channels. Please subscribe to those. If you take a look up here, you're going to see a couple of other videos. There's also a spot to subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. And if you are subscribed, I ask you to please check and make sure that you're still subscribed and your notifications are turned on. Thank you, everybody, for watching the program, and I will see you tomorrow.